Bum ba bum ba dum bum. Bum ba dum ba dum bum bum bum. You're watching Inside the Numbers. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in about 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Not even. Do this thing. Honestly, Madam Producer, it's so bright in here. Holy moly. Let's go, locals. Let's go. All right, let's kill the music. Cut to me. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Listen, if you like the videos, don't forget to like them, share them far and wide. All right, if you're over on Rumble, it'd be great if you would mosey on over to YouTube, do the same thing, and vice versa. If you're on YouTube, mosey on over to Rumble, subscribe, and sign up there. But the best place is right there, locals. peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. All right, listen, I don't want to steal your holly jolly or anything, so we're not doing this for that purpose, because you're not going to steal my holly jolly. My big Christmas balls are on my front porch as we speak. You guys ever watch Hallmark? You ever see the Hallmark balls? You know what I'm talking about? They're big. You put them on the ground. They tilt. One says Merry. The other one's like Christmas. And they're like this, like no joke. I got those balls. I've had them for years. And when they go out, something triggers in me. The tree could go up. The swag could go up. And the swag is super pretty at nighttime when the timer goes off. The whole dining room and whole, like foyer, which is also part of the hallway. When you first walk in, the dining room's off to the right, but the giant wreath is in the dining room and the swag is on the walls that leads to it. It's so pretty. And then there's this tree with a lamp post in it. Laura and I really like the Chaucer look. You know, like the Charles Dickens Chaucer look. Clear lights, not white. Clear lights. Okay? Bouncing off the green and red. It's magical. But there's something about these balls, which of course is a running inside joke in my family. Now, Dad's got the biggest Christmas balls you'll ever see. It's unbelievable. Hallmark Christmas. It's kind of a thing. So you're not going to steal my holly jolly. But the fact is, Government Grinches and their media sycophants are all of a sudden reporting all of this bad news that we have known and we have been talking about for years, right? There's two really big ones that I would really like to discuss. And then there is something that's like kind of breaking, not really, but it is kind of breaking. A lot of us knew this was the case. And I've talked about it before, and I frankly can't stand it. And by the way, right wingers, if you're going to mock Biden for being senile and too old to be president, then you have to be consistent and not even mock. But the fact of the matter is, why did these people feel the need to hang around until they're ready to keel over and die just to make your lives miserable? Why does Mitch McConnell feel that he needs to spend the waning days of his life stroking out in front of the camera and then ruining your life behind closed doors? What kind of a narcissistic, sick son of a you-know-what would feel, instead of spending their final days on planet Earth with their children, their grandchildren, and others that they love during the holidays? Well, remember John McCain? Why wouldn't they do that instead of sticking it to Trump to the end in Washington, D.C., and in turn making your life worse, which we will absolutely talk about with these two stories today. One, let's get into it. The other one is a real, you know what? The other one's that. Let's switch. I want to switch the order of this because one's data friendly and one's fun. All right. And I have fun with data, but maybe everybody doesn't find data as fun as me. But the fact of the matter is, unbelievably, and of course they'll say, but the government just put out the report. Right. But we knew about all of these statistics before, which also begs the question, why did the government just put out the report? See, Harris lost. Biden was going to lose, the switcheroo. They pull. Harris loses anyway. So now they feel that it's okay to tell the truth. Now it's all right to tell you the truth about immigration, and not only the numbers, but the impact. What it has been doing to people. How it has adversely affected their job, their wages, their community, their healthcare, school systems. Basically, the Trump theory of the case since he came down the escalator in 2016, which they have at every turn been adversarial toward, and even self-appointed themselves the fact checkers who routinely disputed these facts. ProPublica, who we're going to get to in a bit. Factcheck.org. PolitiFact. On and on and on and on. And every other news outlet who thought it would be cool or something to put a fact check tab at the corner of their damn menu bar. Once upon a time, by the way, for those of you who don't know this, once upon a time, fact checking, okay, was a project by Google News under what was called claim reviews. And if you were an early contributor or partner with Google News, as we were back when I was data journalism editor at PPD, you literally got what is called schema data or structured data, all right, that went in the header of your website, and it told the Google search engine that these are claim reviews and this is where people can go to get the truth. And then it just got turned into garbage, as everything else does that these people touch. So first and foremost, let's do this story. Here's the New York Times. This is absolutely unbelievable. Mark Hemingway immediately said, "Isn't it funny that all of a sudden we get this report?" Folks, it's not funny at all. It's truly astonishing how these people can lie to you. How much propaganda the public consumes on a daily, day-to-day, daily, 24/7, 365, every second of every minute of every day if you are a news consumer. This is way beyond hypocrisy. This is way beyond something like Orwellian in nature. When I told you, do not hold your breath for these people to conduct introspection and better themselves, I meant it. Look at this. Let's read it. I got another quote, which is just unbelievable. I saved you the trouble. I put this up so I could save you the trouble of clicking on their website and giving them any click whatsoever. And I have taken out probably what is the two most important, they're not even paragraphs, but the two most important sections, collection of sentences in the entire story. First of all, look at that caravan. Look at that caravan. Those look like children and women and families to you. No. The children get pawned off, dude. All right. The sad truth of this is the most evil thing outside of child mutilation, child genital mutilation that has been going on in the United States for years. I remember, and I'm going to blow him up here. He's retired anyway now, but I remember this guy, during the Trump administration I used to speak to. and he worked for the Department of Homeland Security, and he was in a special unit that investigated immigration-related crimes. And it was just awful. The truth of this is awful. The immigration lawyers that you'll see on MSNBC and CNN, and they pretend like they're civil rights heroes or something, they're full of crap. They make millions of dollars through third-party groups and programs and all sorts of other people who literally their business is the trafficking of people. And that includes using your children to buy part of your passage across the border. So your kids will then stay behind, do whatever needs to be done. God knows what. And then when you get over there, you get made due, you get settled, the debt is paid, they will smuggle your child across the border, usually with a fake family, pretending that they are the child's parents. That's why we went through the DNA testing, and the statistics from the DNA testing was just unbelievable. It's not unbelievable though, is it? I mean, we really can't use that word. It's totally believable. Vast majority of those people were not their parents. And then there was a horrible case of a beautiful, beautiful teenage girl. And they found her floating in the swamps of Florida, sexually assaulted, never made it back to her family. Gator food. Raped and tossed to the gators. Civil rights issue, my ass. And that's to say nothing of what it does to the American public who never voted on this. You think Democrats ever ran under the banner of let's invade the country? Look at this quote right here. But high levels of immigration do have downsides. And the high levels that they speak of, that they stated in a prior paragraph, 2 paragraphs before, is an absolutely insane, not just statistic, they put it in perspective, historical perspective, and it's absolutely insane. But high levels of immigration do have downsides, including the pressure on social services and increased competition for jobs. Wait a minute. I thought these were jobs Americans wouldn't do. Somehow America managed, long before we ever got into decades ago the business of importing slave labor, somehow they managed. We all managed without an underclass from Latin America. The Iowa cornfields were getting picked and shucked just fine. But that is completely contradictory to what we have always heard. And we hear on a constant basis from basically slave labor apologists, human trafficking apologists. This is exactly the theory of the case that Trumpism has been making. You import people, you put a burden on social services that the taxpayer cannot fund, let alone take advantage of when they themselves actually need it. When they need the services of their local health department. Anybody who lives in an area where the Department of Interior dumps these people knows damn well that it is, you go down to your local county health department and it is flooded with illegals, flooded with them. That had been the case in Central Jersey in the early 2000s. Go down to the Department of Health, go down to anywhere in like Freehold Township and try to get some kind of assistance. Good luck. 50 illegals at the corner of the 7-Eleven, by the way, competition for jobs, sitting there for $5.50 an hour, $5 an hour, maybe $6. I'll cut a lawn. I know carpentry, boss. HVAC, electrical, all manners of construction and otherwise jobs that American kids who went to vocational school in high school, because high school and college was not a good fit for them, they went They did that instead so they could make a living. And instead, the 7-Eleven $5 an hour crew stole that shit from them. They're useless? Well, the hell are we going to do? I don't know. Drugs? What else do they fulfill it with? Drinking, partying, generally being a useless person in society because, as it turned out, society had no place for them. I wound up going into the military. I went to college. I had a lot of friends where this happened. That's actually, I tell you guys, I credit this for why, when 2016 came around, I understood what those people were saying. Maybe I had, like, kind of in part, you never forget where you come from. Not me, but, like, it's not my personal lived experience anymore. So I did need a reminder. Let me put it like that. But I absolutely understood why Michelle in Lansing, I'll never forget this woman, who voted for Bernie Sanders in the primary, was going to vote for Donald Trump in the general, because both of them, before Bernie became bend over Bernie Sanders, both of them used to talk about the negative impact of stupid trade deals and illegal immigration. And because she was ancestrally a Democrat, she voted for Bernie in the primary. But when Bernie didn't win the primary, the corporatist Hillary Clinton did. She turned and looked over at her husband, who is an unproductive member of society, not any fault of his own, and said, I'm voting for Donald Trump. My husband can't learn the code. Sorry. Hashtag learn the code. You remember that? The Congressional Budget Office has concluded that wage growth for Americans who did not attend college will be lower than it otherwise would have been for the next few years because of the recent surge. On the flip side, higher immigration can reduce the cost of services and help Americans, many with higher incomes, who do not compete for jobs with immigrants. Holy shite. The New York Times. Ladies and gentlemen, the New York Times. So basically, we are importing an invasion, an underclass of slave labor, human trafficking, hurting the working and middle class of our own country, all for the benefit of a bunch of elites and wannabe elites who aren't impacted by these problems. Maybe, as I told, remember the phone call I got saying, how can we help these people understand? And this is when Trump first won, and he was being inaugurated in 2017. What could we do to make these people understand why Trump was elected? And it was so very clear to me. Open the gated communities. Park them in their neighborhoods. Put them in their kids' schools. Make them pay another part of their shared responsibility payment for healthcare, for their healthcare. Hurt them the way that they hurt the rest of us. What is a nation, ladies and gentlemen, as we will soon read in the book club, and this is time for me to remind everybody about this, Nations and Identities, Pecora Pecora. It's an expensive book, but Nations and Identities. What is a nation if not a group of people with shared glory and shared suffering? I didn't write it. It's not my seminal work. It happens to be agreed upon by basically every academic who studies the subject. Shared suffering. Make them suffer the way that they made everybody else suffer. One more thing we can read from glimpse from this real quick, which is a goodie. The immigration surge of the past few years has been the largest in U.S. history. Oh my God. Surpassing the great immigration boom of the late 1800s and early 1900s. Holy. Should I pull a Harry Enton? Holy Toledo. Holy moly. Gee willikers. Would you don't say beaver. Wally. This is incredible. Now, before we get to another side of this story, which is, of course, another media lie that we absolutely need to talk about, here is that graph. It's unbelievable. This is unbelievable. Corned beef Catholicism. It's run by one of our locals, community members on Substack. It's fantastic, and you should go check it out. He recently discussed immigration in an article that he wrote on it, and he brought up the movie Far and Away with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. So really good. You guys should go check that out. But the movie, think about it for a second. Obviously, Nicole Kidman is played by an upper crust Protestant Irish immigrant who comes to America with against her parents' wishes, steals a bunch of things like silver spoons, literally. I mean, it's such a perfect characterization. And when she gets there, she gets robbed and is forced to basically look to someone she had already known from the old country, which is played by Tom Cruise, who is a working class Catholic. Actually, working class isn't even. He's the son of a tenant farmer, Catholic tenant farmer who's poor and basically was the bottom of the rung in Irish society back then. You could see them arriving on the boats, Tammany Hall's grabbing them up. Sure, we'll give you a job in a boarding room for you and your sister. They pretended to be brother and sister. Everybody knew they weren't. This was one part of the movie where she's like, "Oh, just shag her and get it over with." And and Tom Cruise is like, "She's my sister." And everybody's like, "And I'm your mother." So funny. Nobody knew. I mean, nobody believed it. But think about this. This period of invasion, which it is because we did not, of course, unlike Ellis Island, this wasn't at all legal. This wasn't in any way, shape, or form part of our social contract. Nobody voted on this. Nobody gave their consent to be governed like this. This was not done with the okay, the approval, the stamp of the sovereign voter in this country. It was and is an invasion by its definition. An unarmed one, nonetheless, but an invasion. In Far and Away, those people were arriving legally. Legally. And unlike the people in this period, none of them are getting drafted into the Union Army, folks. Like, they're not being Americanized. They're not going through political maturation. They're being dumped in the interior. That's it. When Democrats are in charge, usually in red areas, so 30 years from now, they cannot be that red anymore. It's actually quite brilliant. But to admit that this has now, from 20 to 2023, per year net immigrants surpassing the 1850s. Is criminal. This is criminal, and the entire time the media freaking lied to you. The entire time the media called Trump a xenophobic. He hates Latin Americans. He hates Hispanics. He's xenophobic. He's Hitler. And if you elect him, these people are going in the gas chamber, man. It's just unbelievable. By the way, this is a period that followed a 4-year period of time under Trump that saw a historic reduction in these numbers, a historic number of seizures as when it comes to fentanyl and other illicit drugs. The statistic behind how many known terrorists on the FBI watch list have gotten through the border under Biden versus Trump is it's an unbelievable number. You could look on the Customs and Border Patrol website. And by the way, there are people on the right who are guilty of bullshitting about this too. Trump's primary opponents in the primary made this whole wailing on about how the wall wasn't built. There was literally an interactive graphic on the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. Well, really, it's U.S. Customs and for what U.S. COBE, right? Customs and Border Enforcement, right? Isn't that what it is? Sure. Anyway, it was literally on their website where you could look and see what sections where of the wall were put up and completed and when the rest of it was supposed to go. Was it completed? No. It's more than anybody else did. More than anybody else did. Press release after press release after press release about seizures of fentanyl, the stopping of trafficking of children. You just never heard about any of it because the media didn't want to report it. They didn't care. They wanted to lie about the progress. They wanted to talk about Trump putting kids in cages and use photos from the Obama administration to make it look like the guy was putting kids in cages. And so when I tell you, you cannot hate these people enough, no matter how much you think you cannot stand these people. I hate the word hate. I tell my kids all the time, every time they use the H word, you don't know what you're talking about. Don't use that word. Hatred is a very strong word. You've never hated anybody in your life. You don't know what it means to hate anybody. Don't use that word. It is not a word used lightly. Hate is literally the opposite of God. Do not use the word unless you mean it. If anybody deserves this level of dislike to the point where it rises to the level of hatred, it's this cabal. Because it's not just, oh, they're lying. Oh, it's a little white lie. Oh, they're omitting this. They're lying and they're hurting you and they're hurting other people. They're hurting millions of people. They don't give a shit and they continue to lie. And that's it. And then they know they're hurting you, but they don't care because they don't think you matter. They don't think you matter. It's 12:30. When we come back, we're going to talk about how they do. How this does end up hurting people. But right now, we are absolutely going to have to take a break and pay the bills. All right, look, a lot of changes are on the horizon. What a beautiful thing, right? Very soon, Trump will be back in office, and RFK is taking over CDC, the NIH, FDA. Get ready for the shakeup. RFK even posted himself. The FDA's war on public health is about to end, calling out their suppression of treatments like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, even essential vitamins. The wellness company is already ahead of the curve with emergency kits that are stocked with these limited access medications. These kits cut through the red tape, especially during the holidays when getting sick during travel is the norm. Be prepared for over 30 illnesses without stepping into an urgent care and tackling the issue head on before it develops. And I'm talking about ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, Z-Pak, amoxicillin, everything you need to take control of your health. Their guidebook outlines treatments for UTIs, strep throats, bacterial infections, respiratory illnesses, much more. All it takes is filling out a digital intake form and your kit arrives at your door 1 to 2 weeks. And they even have emergency kits for kids. No more sick inconveniences during the holidays. Order your kit now. Head to twc.health/TPP for the People's Pundit. Use that code TPP. Save yourself up to $30 off and get free shipping. U.S. residents only, but twc.health/TPP. Links in the description. Ooh. Should we watch this before we get into the thing, Madam Producer? Before we get into it's just the boring, somewhat boring, but very consequential. Got to play around with an interactive chart too, just so you could see. Because when you put these charts together, like they do, we do it too. You know, with the economic confidence chart, when sometimes you're changing between sub indexes and an index, it can minimize the visual trend of something. Okay. I'll show you what I mean in a second. So you can see dramatic increases and decreases when you isolate that sub index within the overall interactive. So I'll show you that in a second. We got to play with that so you can see, because I feel like Americans have been hit with like a musical chairs like medley of increased costs. And overall, it's all very terrible, but when you look at them in totality and you look at overall numbers, I mean, they kind of sound bad, but it really doesn't fully describe how rough it's been on for some people until you isolate those indexes and you see how they're trading off with each other. So as soon as Americans think, okay, fine, I can afford food, something else goes wrong. As soon as they think, all right, well, now I got to hold on gas. All right, no problem. Utilities goes up, or utilities gets under control. And it's like, oh my God, I can't afford transportation. It's one thing after the other, all coming back to the same couple of things every time: food, shelter, and energy. Anyone who's from like a working class background, like I don't know how you don't get annoyed by this. They're the most vulnerable ones in our society. They have the least influence. They have one thing they can do: vote. So how well can the system be expected to run if every time they vote, nobody listens to them anyway? You got permanent members of Washington, D.C. who would rather die and take their last breath in their mission, their lifelong mission, to screw the little guy. And that would be Mitch McConnell. This is pathetic, and I don't feel bad for him. I don't. Go home, be with your family. I will give you at least one of those like outro statements everybody gets when they retire. Like, let's all praise and applaud Senator McConnell for his 30 plus years of service to the country. Yeah, okay. He only went along with every fake war, every lie, every big pharma poisoning of the country, every scheme to have China suck us dry and bleed us dry. I'll even give him one of those charade-like outgoing messages if he just goes the hell home right now and just goes away. Go be with your You don't have any grandkids who like you? Nobody calls you Papa? Pappy? No. Don't you have a freaking Christmas gift to wrap for somebody? John McCain, he's another one. Guy can't even go home and die. He's got to take the last moments of his life to betray the voters of Arizona. I remember speaking, he's a regional director, mental health, for a certain area for the VA that covers a certain area in the United States, an entire region. This guy's like, how sick of a person you have to and not sick, but I mean, right. Yeah. I mean, sick, but I don't mean like full on mental illness. I'm talking about like, maybe it's narcissism. Maybe you're just such a tiny little person. You're bitter. You can't get over your own hatred. Maybe you're jealous in the case of John McCain. He's a jealous old man. He was a jealous, bitter old bastard. And he didn't care how many times he promised 1.5, 2.5 million people in the state of Arizona, I'm absolutely going to repeal this law. He had to take it upon himself, one of his last acts, to fly back from Arizona to be in Washington, D.C., so he could put his crusty ass finger down and screw over his party, his friends, the voters, people he made promises to, and of course, because this is all that mattered to him, Donald Trump. Kelly Ward was right about him. She was right. Shall we go through the archives and dig up the old ads? I'm sorry. Are we all just supposed to pretend like those ads and the campaign promises aren't like your word as a man? When do we get to the point where it's like, oh, come on, you know, those are all just lies. And that's okay. He's still a really good guy. Screw that. Guy was a crook the moment he became a public servant. He just had friends and a great story. Nobody wanted to attack. So he got along with his real estate. He got away with it with his little real estate buddy. Screw this, man. I don't care what the hell you are, a war hero or deserter. You don't get to escape. Your all prior actions are not forgiven because of 4 years of your life prior to it. Screw that, man. And here's Mitch McConnell. Here we go. Might as well, and I actually do have the video still. I'm not going to show the prior one where he was just stroking out on camera. So everybody understands. He just sat, for people who don't know what I'm talking about, he just like sat there. Leader McConnell, are you there? Here we are now today. I'm not doing it to be funny. It's not funny. These people are in incredibly powerful positions. They table legislation or advance it. They stack bills with BS for their friends. They start wars. They fund genocides. Like, this isn't funny at all. I don't find it funny at all. I may be laughing, but it's not funny in the least. I don't know how Republicans can, look themselves in the mirror. You mock Joe Biden for being senile, which of course he was and has always been. Why are you tolerating Mitch McConnell still walking the halls of the Senate? I don't care if John Thune replaced him or not, which he really didn't. Let's get real. The guy needs to go home, but that's right. Okay, right. There's no recall vote in Kentucky because Senator McConnell made sure that that bill got passed. So this is how well the 17th Amendment has worked for you. Here we go. Can't even walk. That's the Floridian. Good stuff. Let's do it again. Let's watch it again. Watch it again. Let's see it again. He can't even walk. We all forget when Hillary Clinton was thrown. She basically had heat exhaustion. Sure. And she was thrown into that van by Secret Service and her bodyguards like a sack of potatoes. Like, she was like, went down at the 9/11 memorial. And all Republicans were like, man, you can't have this woman as your nominee. Look at her. She can't even stand up. Something's wrong with Hillary. She had multiple brain fire. That's all, folks. Jesus, man. This isn't funny at all. That was funny. I told you that meme was going to matter. Did I or did I not tell you that meme was going to matter? The dude was Elmer Fudd. Okay? The dude was Elmer Fudd and JD Vance was Bugs Bunny. All right? That stuff carried over. Memes do matter. Do they themselves decide elections? No. But again, like, how many times have we talked about how Trump's like digital army reached a bunch of young people that never vote Republican? Never. That's because it was cool to support Donald Trump this time. It was not cool to support the senile old man, and then the donor-picked replacement who hasn't accomplished a damn thing of her life that she didn't do? Is he gonna say it? Is he gonna say it? On her knees. He's gonna say it. Absolutely. Of course he's gonna say it. Don't you know me by now? Jeez. The guy's got to go home. Everybody should be calling on Mitch McConnell, and should have been already. What is his sole purpose? To thwart Trump, who just won the deepest diverse coalition any Republican ever? Like, ever? The guy got the more black votes, 45 years? No, more than that. He got more Hispanic votes than any Republican candidate. Any. And I don't really care what CES has to say about it. I don't care at all. The proof is in the pudding. You can see it county by county by county. Maverick, Hidalgo, Starr, Zapata, Madera, Stanislaus, Merced, Black Belt counties all through the South and elsewhere. I mean, the man won Hispanic voters in Michigan. Clark County, Nevada. He tied with Hispanic voters in Clark County. He won Asians. What is this Grim Reaper facing white old guy still doing in the U.S. Senate? Like, what is he doing there? Go have a cup of freaking hot cocoa by the Christmas tree, Mitch. You hear that? That's the Lord, man. No, that's a thunderstorm. Every time I have a chance to go out and finish the decorations, it rains. Yesterday, I had a block of like 3.5 hours where I was like, all right, babe, I'm going outside to finish the Christmas decorations. It was sunny. It was beautiful. As soon as I got done with work, boom, the sky opened up. I'm like, oh, I didn't even get the boom yet. The peaks are not done. I know, it's like, oh my God, Rich. Yes, it's a travesty, folks. We are the Christmas house. We are the only family with storage units of Christmas decorations. Remember Dr. Gorka last year was like, man, you're still taking stuff down. I'm like, you want to see? You want to see? So I sent him pictures of like what it looks like, period. And then I sent him pictures of what I had brought back to the storage unit. And he was like, oh my God. You're right. Sorry. Because I was like late. I wasn't late, but they were calling on Skype to be on Newsmax, on his Newsmax show. And I'm like, I'm almost there. I'm almost back. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'll show you what I'm doing. No joke. By the way, congratulations to Dr. Worker for his appointment. You can disagree with the guy on several things. I know some Trump supporters do, but you absolutely cannot question that man's loyalty to his friends and his boss. I mean, he's, is what it is. That's rare. That's very rare in these days. All right, let's talk about some more bad news. They decide that, look, they're just going to all of a sudden start giving you real numbers now. All right. I guarantee when the jobs report comes out at the end of the month, Friday, or the last Friday of the month before the new year, you're going to see how bad seasonal job creation was, and they're going to revise the numbers down for the prior month. I guarantee it. If I'm wrong, I will absolutely be shocked. By the way, I have not forgotten about my pledge. When we do the Christmas poll with Robert, okay, then I will take your shots of disgusting fireball and tweet something nice about Nate Silver. I just don't know what it's going to be yet. I have been thinking for weeks about something nice to say about Nate Silver, and I honestly cannot think of one. Besides the one that I ran by Laura and she red flagged it and said, that's not a compliment. That's not something nice. I'm like, he has good web design graphics. And she's like, no, that's not a Well, listen, I'm open to suggestions. If you think you have a suggestion that I would seriously say, okay, that's legit a compliment. Chat, I'm all for it. Send it to me. I loathe the man. I don't think he's smart at all. He's not good at his job at all. He stopped being good at his job when David Plouffe stopped being good at his job because David Plouffe just gave him polling, which he pretended was a model. So help me out here, chat. Help me out here. I'm dying. And Fireball's disgusting. I have to take shots of that stuff. I went to go get it for the last show. The fuel market up the road from my house stopped selling it. That's how disgusting Fireball is. They don't even have it anymore. I don't even know where to get it. The liquor store that I know of, there's not many liquor stores by me. It's not that kind of an area downtown. There's some bougie ones. But the one that's closer to like where my daughter dances and stuff, they don't even have it. They sell like scotch and stuff like that. They don't have Fireball. This is tougher than I thought it was going to be. And Laura said, I'll just have to take some shots of sake or something. I said, but that's not a punishment. Sake's good. Fireball's not. All right. All right. Let's look at this. And I'll read the headline for you, but I want you to look at the graphic itself. All right. Because we're going to go down through things one by one. This is what I was talking about when I was talking about how you really can't see the full extent of the volatility in these indexes, which of course in real life translates into pain, human suffering, right? They're not just numbers or lines on a graphic. These translate into human pain and suffering. Let's read this before we move on. The Consumer Price Index. Of course, we are looking at the CPI, folks, which is what most people believe to be a very understated gauge of inflation. In other words, inflation is worse than the CPI has always reported. It has been altered over the years, and it does not account for various things. I don't want to get into an economics lesson because it will take till 1 o'clock to finish it. But the fact of the matter is, just trust me when I tell you that the CPI, like GDP and like the jobs numbers, are fugazi. Okay? The fugazi, fake. The Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers, the CPI-U, rose 0.3% on a seasonally adjusted basis in November. You like how I said that word? That was awesome, right? After rising 0.2% in each of the previous 4 months, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported today. Now, that doesn't sound like a whole hell of a lot, but over the last 12 months, the All Items Index rose 2.7% before seasonal adjustment. Now, this is the All Items Index. Let's get rid of the rest. And this is what I'm talking about when I tell you that, like, it doesn't appear to be all that volatile, except you can see under Joe Biden, it exploded. The gray line, the very narrow gray line, is what we consider to be the artificial yet real, artificially created yet real, brief recessionary period during the COVID era. It was a government-induced recession. And as you can see, as I recently argued with somebody, by the time Joe Biden was sworn into office, there was what we call a V-shaped recovery for the CPI, as there was for everything else. And when Trump was allegedly voted out of office, the economy was already rebounding and looking again to be very strong. Folks, that even included, as we all know, my little bit of my pet peeve on the economy is the housing market. The truth is, it was extraordinarily weak under Barack Obama and even under Donald Trump for like the first 2.5, 3 years. The housing market was not firing that fourth cylinder of the economy. It was getting stronger. It was. You could see it in the pending home sales index, the PHSI from the National Association of Realtors, the existing home sales index. You could see it in the Commerce Department's new residential construction statistics. You could even see it in builder sentiment. But builder sentiment, and then followed by new residential construction, did not truly explode back to enormous growth, which really signaled a massive boom that was on the way until right before COVID. Then that happened, and I kid you not, go look it up. A month later, a deadly virus that happened to kill a lot of Trump supporters, but looked like it was almost engineered to do so. As Barnes said, looked like it was engineered to kill Trump himself. At that point, seniors were very, very Trumpy still. It just happened to leak out of a facility in Wuhan that, as it turns out, the US government was helping to fund. They also lied to you about that and told you that it must have been the creation of a wet market, which nobody believed. And in fact, before the election, the State Department and the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, had been telling the media that this was not a virus that would naturally came out of a wet market. This was a virus that was engineered. Pfizer knew it when they were creating the vaccine. When they deconstructed the virus, they immediately knew that it was an engineered virus. Everyone knew it. They told everybody. They told the Wall Street Journal. They told Fox News. They told the New York Times. They told the Washington Post. Nobody wanted to run the story. The State Department even took it upon themselves to launch their own investigation to see if they could corroborate the information that was funneled up the intel chain to the Director of National Intelligence. And they, in fact, concluded that that is correct. Again, circle back, told everybody in Murdoch world, Murdoch Inc., the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, they didn't run it. In any event, you can see here, it was a very long about way to tell you that like almost all of the other economic indicators that are tracked and reported on a monthly basis, the CPI was in a V-shaped recovery and it did not skyrocket until well into Joe Biden's term. Why? It is generally understood to be the result of Joe Biden's energy policy coupled with the Orwellian named Inflation Reduction Act, which probably less than 10% of the public could correctly tell you only passed because the former nominee, the loser nominee, Kamala Harris, the vice president of the Democratic Party and the vice president of the United States, had to cast the tie-breaking vote in the Senate to get it passed. It's unbelievable that we just went through an entire election cycle and you were not told that. Not from anybody in big media, legacy media. If you watch this show, maybe if you watch Benny Johnson, maybe if you watch Charlie Kirk, maybe if you watch Viva Fry, maybe if you watch Robert Barnes. But sure as shit not if you watch Fox News or read the New York Times or the Washington Post or watch CNN or MSNBC. Then he started a war like an idiot. A war in Eastern Europe. The index for shelter rose 0.3% in November, accounting for nearly 40% of the increase in the all items index for the month. Here's shelter. if we get rid of all items, first of all, you can see how it's overlaid onto the all items, and you can see something immediately jumps out about shelter. One, shelter immediately after Joe Biden takes office begins to explode. It precedes the increase in the all items index, and its increase is greater than the all items index. You can see that clear as day. Now let's get rid of that. All right. Or I'm sorry, vice versa. But it does in the end that the rate of increase exceeds, and that's because energy came first. But let's go back to the read. I'm going to leave you shelter. We're going to go through these one by one. Nearly 40% of the monthly all items gain from shelter. The food index also increased over the month. Let's go to food now. Compare it with shelter. As you can see, all right, the food is the fat blue. All right, let's add all items to this. All right, and you can see that food has been a major problem. Do you remember the poll we did? I think this was 2022, but it was before the midterms. So it could have been the tail end of 2021. But we asked people about inflation and whether or not two things. One, are you having a difficult time finding these items when you go to shop on your normal grocery visit? Are you finding these things, or are you having a difficulty? And we actually gave them a scale. They were at a severe bottleneck when it came to things like meats, poultry, seafood, eggs, milk was huge. You remember milk? Butter. And then, of course, as a follow-up, are you paying more for them? It was like in the 80s. It was outrageous. That was one of the most illuminating polls we have conducted over the last 4 years. All right, so there's food, and you can see it. Getting back to it. It rose 0.4% as the food at home index increased 0.5, and the food away from home index rose 0.3. Of course, what does one mean? What does the other mean? What we were just talking about, for instance, groceries, food at home, food away from home, going out to eat, having dinner. Okay. Now let's keep the food and add the energy index. There you go. See, that's stunning. That precedes the overall gain, of course. It's significantly more dramatic, of course. The reason why I'm doing one by one is to show you, like, I want you guys to notice the different periods where each one begins to really put the hurt on the American consumer. And you can see them kind of doing this leapfrog-like thing. Now, energy is almost in a league of its own, and it came down this month, or didn't come down, sorry. The rate of increase slowed, and much more so compared to some of the others like food and shelter. But that's just the thing. It's not like energy was getting any better. It's just worsening at a lower rate. And something else, as energy starts to get a grip, something else now rises to the surface, which is shelter, is a big problem. Shelter, folks, is rent and mortgage. Having a roof over your head. We have not left the bottom fifth tier on the pyramid in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Basic human needs. The energy index did rise. It rose 0.2 over the month after basically being unchanged in October. That is normally not a bad gain for the energy sub-index of the CPI. However, because we've had, you can see it right there, such horribly dramatic increases, we need like negative readings in order to get in a better place. It is now starting to kind of balance out here a little bit, but don't forget, we're out of the summer driving season. high demand for gasoline. Right? People are traveling. Now we're in the holidays, and of course people are, but this is the month of November, remember. This is not the month of December. Personally, I used where we are. There's a chain of grocery stores. I still love Publix way more. Publix is the best ever. But there's a chain of grocery stores that also has gas stations attached to it. You go and you buy your food from Harris Teeter. You get your points. You do your thing. This is what we do. And you rack up points every month, and you can apply it to your gas bill. All right, when you go to the gas station before or after you leave. Depends on how many points you have. And when I went to go fill up the car the other day, I actually had a lot of points. So, and it was only like $1.89 a gallon after I had about $1.20 gallon discount or something like that. That is considered roughly decent. Just a reminder, during the Trump era, $1.89 was that's what it was. Without points. So let's see. Guy with the Suburban on the other side of the pump was like, is it me or this guy just got elected and it's already like half the price? And I'm like, yeah, so give it time. I mean, it's not it yet. I'm not, I'm not willing to say it's because of the election. Hell, I don't know. Maybe it is. We don't know what talks he's having. I don't believe in like instant changes in gas prices like that. Well, you can do things to dramatically reduce the cost of gas pretty quickly. But the first thing Joe Biden did was kill the Keystone Pipeline. That was a great signal. Not to mention, Pennsylvania was Trump's strongest of the big three. Can't imagine why. The index for all items less food and energy rose 0.3% in November, as did in each of the previous 3 months. Indexes that increased in November include shelter, used cars, and trucks, household furnishings and operations, medical care, new vehicles, and recreation. The index for communication was among the few major indexes that decreased over the month. Oh, whoop-de-doo. The all items index rose 2.7% for the 12 months ending November, after rising 2.6% over the last 12 months in October. The all items less food and energy rose, are you ready? Because energy has such a weight on this index that when it doesn't gain at a greater than average rate, or not even greater than average, I would say that like relative to the other indexes, but it was 0.2 this month. So get this. I mean, it held this volatility down actually. But if you're less food and energy, 3.3% over the last 12 months. That's basically the cost of everything else. That is a very dramatic gain. The energy index decreased 3.2 for the 12 months ending November. So energy is actually holding the rate of inflation down as of now. The food index increased 2.4 over the last year. And again, you got to, reason I'm like sticking this thing in your face right here, folks, because it's to show you how bad it was before. So during the election and everything, I mean, we're not going to hear this kind of rhetoric anymore because frankly, they don't care. They don't need to go like above and beyond and lie to you about economic performance anymore because they don't care. Now they want negative news because they actually want to saddle Trump with the negative news. They do. They would love nothing more than for a debt bomb to go off under Donald Trump. They would love that. They think they're going to be insulated from it anyway. It's only going to hurt people like you and I. They do. Sadly, I recently talked to a Republican donor in Phoenix who had a house. If I blow this up, you may know who I'm talking about. Who had a house in a very liberal area, still does, in another state, let's say a neighboring state. in a very liberal area in that neighboring state. They said that basically everybody they know thinks that they will be just fine in the event that there would some kind of nationwide debt crisis. Austerity would not hurt them. They have plans. They've prepared for this. Now, to be fair, some of these people have more money than God, and that's kind of true in some sense, but I don't know. Many a wealthy people and families have been wiped out by market declines, market crashes, and debt bombs. Now, these super uber smart and rich, they make money during market crashes, but debt bombs, this isn't exactly the tulip bubble. That's a different story. All right, it's 107. We are going to do a little bit shorter shows and inside the numbers. However, before we do, okay, don't forget about the Christmas poll, which I will show you some of what we are working on. All right. We are going to ask several questions every year that are consistent. That's what we've decided to do. Why is somebody logged into my survey software? You got to be shitting me. Oh, this is great. That ain't good. Yeah, it appears somebody was logged in. I mean, I don't think who's trashing stuff. You got to be kidding me. All right. I'm dead serious. Give me 1 second here, guys. I'm going to go ahead and reset my password. I'm not kidding. All right. Somebody was absolutely logged in. I don't know if they want me to tell everybody, but recently another pollster that we know and love was also hacked on the same platform. So they must have had some kind of a data breach. I'm going to go ahead and say that that is almost very, very, very likely. Okay. So that's worth looking into. I don't know. Let's see. What am I going to do here? Hold on, guys. Yeah, this is a good idea. I like this. Liking this. I'll have to deal with this when we get over. All right, so we'll be asking several of the same questions that we did ask the prior year. Got a little bit of a twist in there. Like I said before, expect it to be probably around like, I don't know, maybe 3,000 something adults. And then, maybe over 3,000 adults. And then like just under or maybe 2,500 voters for the actual poll because we're going to front load that stuff. Christmas stuff. And then we'll do the likely voter screen and we'll ask about transitions. We'll ask about pardons. Don't want to make it too big. We just really don't. And it has to be done this week. So we'll start to actually enter the field before the weekend, touching in on the weekend around Saturday night. Last 2 weeks or so is not enough. There's it's just low participation right now. So I think we're going to have to keep it in the field longer. So instead of, how I feel about polling during certain days and polling over the weekend and what times you poll, it matters. It matters. But we're going to have to leave ourselves a little bit more time because it's like that. All right. So don't forget, links in the description. It is what it is. Even if it's not funded by the time we do this, I'm still going to release it. All right. I'm still doing it. We need the Christmas poll. Then after the holidays, by the way, we have our trust and institution indexes that we have to do. And by the spring, a lot of that stuff's got to be out of the way so we can get to our annual like UFO questions and stuff like that. Stay consistent. Consistency. We're also going to get the registered voter economic confidence index in this poll because I think And I actually may do everybody. I may actually do like all adults, but normally I like to boot the adults out of that question because there's always this like debate over whether or not economic confidence matters. And if it does, how predictive is it? And then by the way, is it perceptions or is it specific conditions? And it's perceptions, by the way. And then of course, for me, I'm always like, well, why do people even care about all adults? Because the fact of the matter is, registered voter universe, if we're talking about predictive value, is the only ones that we should really care about. Yet, a lot of these others have repeatedly, forever, focused on adults. I'm excluding, of course, the Consumer Sentiment Index, the Conference Board's Consumer Confidence Index, because those are supposed to be consumers, not voters, right? But exactly what I'm talking about. What's the predictive value of them is debatable because they're not all just a voter universe. All right. What else am I forgetting? Of course, like I said, as we get to the end of the year here, folks, I will repeat this over and over again. Laura and I always figure out, two things. One, what else can we do to protect our, I don't want to call it wealth, but not, wealth, but what else can we do to do that? Maybe advance it, right? And then also the second thing to that is charity. We have not gotten our charitable institution a highlight this year, so I'm going to take suggestions for that now. But on the other thing, which I'll talk to you about a little bit more on Friday, but for today, again, I would suggest, as I always do, to go on and talk to our friends at Freedom Gold if you're in the same boat. freedomgoldusa.com/rich, freedomgoldusa.com/rich, or you could call the number that's just for us, 888-279-3592, 888-279-3592. You will be thrown into what is essentially a raffle pool. And as always, somebody's going to win some free silver, which is really cool. And of course, we'll have the guys come back and tell us who it is who won. But there's a lot of great deals in there just for viewers of the People's Pundit. These houses are like 50K, 20K, 10K minimum commitments. Just it's not at all for Freedom Gold, especially for you guys. They've reduced that all the way down to just $500. I mean, that's really quite astonishing. And if you open a new gold or silver IRA, you could get a $500 credit. There's a lot of stuff there. Just go to the website, see what you check out what you qualify for. freedomgoldusa.com/rich, or give them a buzz. Tell them the People's Pundit sent you. 888-279-3592. All right, what else? I feel like I'm missing something. Sean Parnell tonight. Battleground Live at 5. Battleground Live at 5. I'm not stopping. Savage Wednesdays, just because the election is over. Look forward to hanging out with my friend Sean, and maybe during the holidays weekend, just chill and hang out. Be really cool. Our wives like each other. Sean's a good dude. He's one of the good ones. If you want to support somebody, support their show by making sure you tune in to something else other than the People's Pundit. Battleground is a great show. Sean's a great guy. The guy's a true patriot, and also he never stops. The guy's a warrior. What do you expect? But he never stops. And he's a good guy. He's got a good heart. And speaking of the media, scumbags, perfect example. Guy could be the senator from Pennsylvania right now. Who do you think would represent the state of Pennsylvania better? And he'll never say, I know he knows Dave and he's friends with Dave. That's all very good. I'm not. I'll say whatever I want. Who would represent the voters of Pennsylvania better? Sean Parnell or Dave McCormick? I'm going to go out on a limb and say Sean Parnell would have been more representative. Why? He's from working class Western Pennsylvania. Dave certainly is not. He's from Western Pennsylvania, but he's certainly not working class. Come on now. The process, right? I feel like I'm not missing anything now. I think that was it. Right? Don't forget, if you like the videos, don't forget to like them and share them far and wide. All right. If you're on if you're on YouTube, it would be great if you could mosey on over to Rumble and subscribe and sign up there as well. Throw a like on it, throw a rant on it. That'd be cool. And share it. Sharing is a huge deal, by the way. All right. It's just a huge deal, but vice versa as well, because algorithms and advertisers are unfortunately how you make a successful show in this world. Advertisers and algorithms. So don't forget. But the best place, of course, to follow us is right here. Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. I'm not going to take anybody away from their holidays. But again, don't forget Nations and identities. Nations and identities will be our. We should mirror the camera so people can see that title, right? That will be here. You want to see something? See exactly what I'm talking about. Oh, it is. Ooh, there we go. Let's see if it does it now. Nations. There it is. Whoop. There it is. Nations and identities. All right. Which is, of course, Vincent Pecora. It's not a cheap book, and I'm sorry, but it's necessary to understand how these ivory tower flakes discuss this stuff. And then when we're done with this, we'll get into Benedict Anderson. I'll just give you a head start right now. Benedict Anderson, Imagined Communities. All right. It's not light reading. We'll have to make, neither was Bernard Bailyn, by the way. The ideological origins of the American Revolution wasn't exactly light reading. All right. So we'll be all right. But that's for the book club. And I'm not going to pull people away from their holidays, but it will start shortly in the new year. All right. So give you guys plenty of time. You get Nations and Identities. And if you want to get a head start, get Imagined Communities. All right. All right. I think that's it. Nothing but love for you as always. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on Friday. It's a freewheeling day, so get your questions ready. We should have a lot of fun with that show as well. See if somebody's going to stop by. I think we may have that. We'll see. Did I miss anything? Miss anything? Nope. And that's it. So we'll see you on Friday, guys. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers. And of course, take the time with your families to enjoy yourselves. It is Christmas time. It's the holidays. Enjoy it. All right. Decompress. Woosah, pull on your ears. Remember your pressure points. Go see some Christmas lights. Love you guys. See you.